How's it going, everyone? Today I'd like to just have a nice discussion about some of my favorite directors of all time. There's a long list of favorite directors, going back even to the 1930s. Back then, I think my favorite director for a 1930s film would have to be Charlie Chaplin. The man was a genius. He composed his own music. He directed his own movies. He starred in his own movies. He did a lot, and all to make people laugh. And he did a lot of things. He did a lot of really crazy stunts that were just so cool and impressive. And he's like the hero of the silent picture era of Hollywood. And I love Charlie Chaplin. Like seriously, Charlie Chaplin's awesome. And after Charlie Chaplin, well, I think that honor goes to Howard Hawks. I think his movies like Rio Bravo and His Girl Friday have a certain charm to them. His Girl Friday is brilliant because of the overlapping dialogue. Like it's so fast, the dialogue's coming at you like a bullet, and it's so smart and witty, and I love it. I love it very much. And also, one of my favorite Western directors, John Ford, was very popular at this time. He created films like The Searchers and Stagecoach, both starring the legendary actor John Wayne, who grew to have a good relationship with John Ford. And in fact, actually, when John Ford was making a movie, he his eye got damaged, so he spent most of his life with an eye patch over his eye, and he still made movies with the eye patch on. So he was kind of like a Western bad guy making a Western movie, which I think is all but good. And of course, who can forget the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock, the man that created the whole idea of suspense in his movies, building it up, using every trick in the book to make the audience completely unaware what's going to happen and just have them at the edge of their seat. He he created some of the best films ever made, like North by Northwest, Vertigo, Rear Window, Psycho. You know that nothing without Alfred Hitchcock that would not be around today. And of course, I can't forget some of the directors that come from the east, like Akira Kurosawa. The man is a legend himself, creating movies like The Seven Samurai and Yojimbo and um, so many, and ran so many great films that have influenced Western culture itself. Why, without The Seven Samurai, we wouldn't have Magnificent Seven movies, and also we wouldn't have one of my favorite Pixar movies, A Bug's Life, which also takes a heavy inspiration from his film Seven Samurai. And of course, I can't forget Sweden's own director Ingmar Bergman. He created The Seventh Seal, a great film about death, and I highly recommend it. And it's one of those great films where it shows a man playing a game of life and death of chess with death, and it's just really good. In fact, in one of my favorite cartoons, Animaniacs, they actually do a parody of that scene, but the Animaniacs, they trick Death into playing checkers with them, and Death loses. Also, that's referenced in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey when they play all sorts of games with Death, and he loses every time, and he's a sore loser. And of course, I can't forget Italy's Federico Fellini. He created such films as Eight and a Half and La Strada, and he was very visual, and very. His films had a certain whimsy charm to it that I really enjoy. And of course, there's the man responsible for the Italy spaghetti westerns, Sergio Leone, who created such films as A Fistful of Dollars, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West. So many great westerns from that are so popular today came from this man, and I love it. And of course, he's basically the one who made Clint Eastwood that sexy movie star we see today, and also gave him some tips when directing Clint Eastwood's films like Unforgiven. Um, Another great director I'd like to talk about is um, Stanley Kubrick, a perfectionist to the last. He worked on his movies day and night just to get it right. In fact, his movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, he destroyed almost every single artifact from that movie just so that um, other science fiction films would not take artifacts and put it in their movie. Um, and also, he created some of the best movies of all time, like The Shining, a great film starring Jack Nicholson as a deranged man on a verge of insanity trying to kill his family after being cooped up in a hotel for the winter. And Full Metal Jackets, a great film about war. Like, seriously, I don't think there's a film out there that I like more about war than Full Metal Jackets. I think it is a brilliant movie, and my favorite character is Sergeant Gunnery Hartman, played by actual war veteran R. Lee Ermey, who mostly improvised most of um, his lines in the movie, something that Stanley Kubrick would only do with one other actor, the great Peter Sellers, in his film Doctor Strangelove, because they were both geniuses and knew their work. And Stanley Kubrick just like, okay, this is good, do it, do some more. And all these masters, they set the way for some of the best filmmakers of all time, like Steven Spielberg, a man who has revolutionized the movie industry. He created the summer blockbuster with Jaws in 1975, and who created such great classics like Jurassic Park, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Saving Private Ryan. So many great films, and he's an amazing director, and my number one. And also these have also inspired Martin Scorsese, a man who creates gangster movies and movies about shame and just um, great works like Raging Bull, Casino, Goodfellas, working with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, all these wise guys who kind of take the screen and they just make you think, man, it'd be cool to be in the mob, even though you might get whacked. And another great director I have to say is John Carpenter. John Carpenter has created so much great pieces of work. Big Trouble in Little China, one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Halloween, the start of the slasher films. The Thing, a visual spectacle of horror and suspense like nothing has ever seen before. They Live, an interesting idea of social commentary about commercialism and how it's used to use hypnotics on us to make us subliminally think what we want. And of course, there's Francis Ford Coppola, who created one of the best movies of all time, The Godfather. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. Like, his films are a work of art. And like Apocalypse Now, on paper it's so easy. A man going down the river, a man going on a boat down the river and during the Vietnam War, but it opens up so much, and it's incredible. And of course, I can't forget those those underrated but fantastic directors as well. One of them being Don Bluth, a man who stood up to Disney in the 80s and said, you know what, I don't like the way that you're doing things. I'm going to go and make my own animation studio. How do you like that? And you want to know what he does? He creates masterpiece after masterpiece, like The Land Before Time, Anastasia, The Secret of NIMH, All Dogs Go to Heaven. Great works of art that put Disney and American Tail. Great works of art that put Disney movies to the side for a little bit and kind of just made Disney step up their game a little because they now had some real competition. And of course, I can't forget about Sam Raimi, the man who brought Spider-Man to the big screen back in the early 2000s. He started work as a horror director on films like The Evil Dead, and he just became this great phenomenon. And I'm so excited to see his new movie this March, Doctor Strange 2: Multiverse of Madness. And of course, one of my favorite directors is Robert Zemeckis, a man responsible for creating one of my favorite films of all time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future, and Forrest Gump. And if it's close to the holiday season, I recommend that you watch his version of A Christmas Carol and The Polar Express. Both great movies and will definitely make you get into that holiday spirit. And who can forget about the gory directors themselves? Tim Burton, a man who created Batman, Beetlejuice, so much more. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Corpse Bride, who pitched the idea of The Nightmare Before Christmas but didn't direct it. It was directed by Henry Selick, who directed one of my other favorite horror films, Coraline. And of course, there's Guillermo del Toro, a newcomer to the movie industry, who first really huge success was Pan's Labyrinth, a great balance between horror and fairy tale whimsy, who also won Best Picture for his movie The Shape of Water, where a girl who cannot talk falls in love with a fish man, and it's beautiful. He also helped create the movie Hellboy, a great film, and its sequel also great, and just has this whole idea of fairy tales coming into any sort of idea. Any sort of idea that he has is just great, and he really brings his A game. Another director I like is Quentin Tarantino, who homages other directors' works, but creates something new with it. And finally, the last director I like to talk about is Hayao Miyazaki, the anime master himself, who created Spirited Away. Both excellent films, and that's it. That's all the time I have for today. Thank you for listening to me rant about my favorite directors. Have a great night, everybody.